I've heard so many people online say that contouring doesn't work on mature faces, but the truth is that it absolutely can. It just needs a slightly different approach. Today I'm going to show you how to contour and highlight in a way that adds soft dimension and structure while keeping everything looking really natural and lifted. Let's get right into it. Editing Gabby here. Sorry about the glare on my glasses, you guys. I never wear glasses when I film, so I didn't realize that they would have a glare. I don't have it in me to film this all over again. I was actually wearing them because I injured my eye and I have like a pocket of swelling here that I was trying to camouflage slightly, you know, with my glasses, but then all you can see are the lights. It is what it is. At least the tutorial is not about me. After your base is prepped with your hydrating skincare, the first step is to apply your foundation. My client today is my beautiful mom, Maria. She's in her mid-60s. She loves glam makeup and she definitely does not shy away from coverage. So I went in with a gorgeous foundation, one of my favorites of all time. This is the Dior Forever Skin Perfect Stick Foundation. Lately, I've noticed that a lot of people, especially in the mature skin category, are staying away from more traditional foundations and leaning really heavily into very sheer kind of serum-y formulas. And don't get me wrong, those can be absolutely beautiful, but I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. If you are looking for a more polished, more flawless finish, those formulas typically aren't going to give you that. They're going to give you glow. They're going to give you very light coverage. They're going to feel weightless and comfortable, which can look lovely, but it's not going to create that more glam perfected look. This specific formula has a skincare base, so it's quite hydrating, especially when compared to many of the other stick foundations on the market, but it still provides a lot more coverage than the serum formulas that are being promoted everywhere right now. The way I like to apply this is by dabbing a little onto the back of my hand first, and then I evenly coat the bristles of my brush and apply it using a mix of both pressing motions where I want more coverage and then softer sweeping motions where I want to shear the formula out. One quick tip before we move on: avoid applying foundation directly under the eyes. Areas with more texture tend to crease. So since we're going to use concealer there anyway, we want to minimize the number of layers in that area specifically as much as possible. A huge problem area for a lot of people. Now let's move on to contour. One thing that's really important to understand with mature faces is that we are not trying to hollow the face out. That actually happens naturally as we age and lose some facial fat. So instead of trying to carve out deeper hollows, what we're trying to do is build dimension and bring some structure back into the face so that it's not all one tone. So that is why on mature faces, I actually like using a contour that has a slightly warmer undertone. This still shapes the face and creates depth, but it does it in a way that looks more natural and sun-kissed and less gaunt or hollow. Cool toned contours will really contour, like it will really carve it out, but it can go into skeleton territory really quick. So just pick a contour that has a little bit more of a warmer tone to it that feels a little bit more sun-kissed, and you'll totally avoid that from happening. For placement on my mom, I started around the forehead. My mom has a slightly longer forehead, so I softly rounded out the edges to make it appear a little shorter, and then I moved over to the cheekbones. Now, traditionally, contour is placed in the hollow of the cheek right here, but on mature faces, I actually prefer placing it slightly higher right along the bone itself. This placement creates more lift and avoids exaggerating that natural hollowness that progresses as we age. My mom also doesn't love the appearance of her jawline or the looseness in her neck, so I rounded that area with contour as well. If you struggle with jowls and looseness here, it's a very common complaint in this age group. You can soften that transition and subtly reshape the lower face by adding a bit of shadow there. I also like placing the contour along both sides of the nose, rounding slightly at the tip, and then connecting that line into the crease and lifting it up and out towards the temple. This keeps everything flowing upwards. And finally, I place a little contour just under the lip line. That creates a small shadow which can make the lower lip appear slightly fuller. Now, something I really want to emphasize here is that contour placement is incredibly individual. It should always be adjusted based on someone's face shape and also based on their personal preferences. It's a very personal thing. You can find tons of contour charts on Pinterest that show placement based on different face shapes, and those can be a really helpful starting point, but I wouldn't get too focused on what's right or what's wrong. This year, I really want to encourage you guys to start seeing makeup through the eyes of an artist rather than through a set of of rules, because there are no rules in makeup. If you dislike your jowls, place them in a shadow. If your jawline feels too square for you, like my friend Suze did in that other video that I did, soften the edges with a little contour. You're essentially painting shadows and light to create the illusion that you want. So instead of following tutorials and looking exactly where people are placing things and copying, look at your face and think, where do I want to push stuff back? Where do I want to bring stuff forward? And paint according to those rules, according to your own eye. Think of your brush like a paintbrush and use it to shape your face in the way that feels most beautiful to you. Now let's blend everything out. For this step, I am using BK Beauty N18 brush. This is one of the best contour brushes I have ever used. It has the perfect density and the perfect size for this type of blending. When I blend, I am pressing the bristles into the skin first and then pushing upwards to soften the edges. If you have white or gray hair, okay, go easy on the forehead contour so you don't stain the hairline. In my mom's case, it's very easy since she colors her hair dark, but if your hair is white, maybe apply a little less or even apply a little lower so that you can diffuse. By the time you get to the white hair, you don't have like a lot of product collecting there. When I move into the cheekbone area, I always lift up and I never ever drag down. The motion really is a push and sweep. Push the product into the skin, then softly sweep upwards. Push and sweep over and over again until you get the level of diffusion that you want. When we move into the jawline and neck area, we use the same idea, but the direction changes slightly. Instead of lifting upwards, we actually blend downwards. So the entire neck falls into a very soft shadow. That helps everything look cohesive and avoids harsh lines along the jawline. I gotta admit, I went very heavy on the contour here so that you could really see it on camera. The camera softens things out so much that I really went heavy so that you guys could see where I was placing it. In real life, I would probably use about half this amount of product, so please keep that in mind when you're watching this. Contour is very easy to build on, okay? But it is much harder, nearly impossible, to remove once you've applied too much. Because I'm a makeup artist and also because my mom has a deeper skin tone, I can pretty easily diffuse this, but if that's not the situation for you, please just start with a lighter hand. When it comes to the crease area, I switch to a fluffy crease brush and use windshield wiper motions to blend that shadow out. This pushes the crease back into the shadows, which can be really helpful if you have puffiness or hooding. It also helps create the illusion of more depth so that the eyelids look a little bit more open and prominent. Then I softly connect that shadow to the lines along the bridge of the nose. Connecting the crease to the nose is actually something artists do all the time when they are shading faces on paper. You see it all the time, like pay attention to it next time. And there's a reason why they do that, and there's a reason why we do this in makeup as well. As long as you are really blending that out well and creating the shadows in a diffused way, it can be incredibly flattering, like incredibly flattering. All right, now let's start adding some light to bring features forward. The first area that I like to brighten is the tear trough by placing light right through the hollowness there and softly connecting it into the fullness of the cheek. You can smooth that transition and bring a little more fullness back into the mid face. Next, I like to lift the outer corners of the eyes by adding a touch of brightness right through this area. I also like to round out the forehead by placing a small amount of light right in the center. This helps bring a little balance to that contour that we placed earlier. And then I'll add a bit of brightness around the nasolabial folds to soften that shadow out and help that overall area appear a little bit fuller and smoother. For the nose, I like creating a very subtle button nose effect by placing a tiny dot of light at the tip and then a thin little line right through the center of the bridge. Because my mom has quite a narrow face, I'm also going to add a little highlight directly into the cheekbone hollow right here. This helps plump that area slightly and bring a bit more softness to the face. To blend, we use the exact same technique that we used for contour. We press the product into the skin first, and then we softly blend to diffuse the edges. Think of it as a push and sweep, just like before, until everything melts seamlessly into the skin. For this step, I am using BK Beauty A506, which is a much smaller, more controlled brush. Now let's set everything with powder. If you want to prevent creasing, setting powder is really important. It's another step that the mature community is very scared of, and they shouldn't be. My mom's skin is actually quite dry, so she falls into the dry mature skin category, but I still use it. I just use a very light hand. The powder that I chose for her is the Laura Mercier Ultra Blur, which I talk about all the time. It's my favorite dry skin or mature skin powder. And the reason that I love it is because it's designed specifically for drier skin types in mind. It actually has hyaluronic acid in the formula, which makes it a hydrating powder. If you didn't know, the two could go together. They can. This is the perfect formula for it. So if you need a powder to set makeup, but you have dry skin, I really recommend getting this one. When it comes to applying powder, I personally never use a brush. I always use a powder puff because it gives me much more control over where the product goes. What I like to do is apply a little powder to the palm of my hands first, then I pick it up with the puff, press the powder into the puff to evenly distribute it, and from there I press it into the areas that are most likely to crease. For my mom, that's mainly the nasolabial folds under the eyes and some of the slightly oilier areas of the face, like around the nose. The key here really is pressing the powder into the skin rather than sweeping it across the surface. That helps lock everything in place without disrupting the makeup and all the work you did underneath. Now let's move on to blush. For this step, I'm using the IT Cosmetics Sun Blush, and I am absolutely in love with this formula. If you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend it. If you want to pick up a new cream blush, it's the one to pick up. It is just beyond gorgeous. It has a gorgeous texture. Just like before with the foundation, I apply the cream onto my brush first, and then I diffuse some of the pigment onto the back of my hand. That way I don't end up with any harsh spots or overly concentrated areas of color that I then have to work really hard to blend out. Because I place the contour quite high on my mom's cheekbones, I'm applying the blush pretty much right on top of it. We still have that bronzy depth underneath, and this layer of blush kind of stacks beautifully on top and adds that youthful pop of color. When it comes to blush placement, for a long time, I actually followed that kind of traditional rule of placing the blush very high on the cheekbone to lift mature faces. But lately, playing around some more, as artists do, I've really been loving placing it actually more on the apples of the cheek and then softly sweeping it upwards. I find this placement especially flattering if someone has a bit of hollowness under the eyes because it softens that transition between the cheek fullness and the tear trough hollow. Rosemary Swift from RMS Beauty taught me that, and it's just a brilliant technique. It actually works incredibly well. I find it works better on mature faces with eye hollowness than staying too far outwards on the face now. You will also notice that when I apply cream blush, I still like to use those pressing motions. This helps melt the product into the skin so that everything just looks super seamless. And finally, I finished with Charlotte Tilbury's Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. This is one of my favorite setting sprays because it really helps melt all of the product together, and it just transforms everything into a beautiful, very healthy skin-like finish. At this point, we were technically finished, but off camera, my mom asked if we could add a little highlighter because she absolutely loves that product. She is a highlighter lover. She has so many. So of course I said yes, and I went in with the Armani liquid highlighter. What a liquid highlighter does is it simply just catches the light. It's not glittery at all. It's not sparkly. It's more of an illuminating sheen. And that can be really, really beautiful on the skin because it draws the eyes to that area. It kind of plumps it up. I like to stipple it onto the tops of the cheekbones using my fingertips. And then I take a small crease brush to place a little bit right under the brows and along the bridge of the nose. This step, of course, is completely optional. I would say it's definitely one that I save for more of the makeup lovers out there. But I do think it's a bit like the cherry on top. It adds that final touch of light and takes the look to the next level of refined glam for sure. And here is her finished look. I hope that you learned something new today, but more importantly, I hope that you feel excited to play with makeup. Contouring your face does not mean that you dislike your features or that you hate yourself. I've actually seen a lot of people that I respect actually say that online recently, and I just do not see it that way at all. You are not trying to change who you are. You're simply enjoying makeup for what it is. It's creative, it's artistic, and sometimes it can even be a little transformative. It's just self-care. It's just an artistic form of self-care. So grab those damn brushes and paint yourself. There's absolutely no shame in that. Up next on the channel, you can learn how I cover dark circles on mature eyes without concealer settling into those pesky fine lines and wrinkles, or you can check out what YouTube recommends for you right here. I'll see you.